everybody and big welcome to a cEDH set review, or well, set and set. We're gonna take a look at all the Transformer cards from Magic the Gathering's secret lair. There are not that many, so we're gonna talk about all of them, even though all aren't really cEDH viable. So first one out we have Stoic Strategist. So all of them have more than meets the eye, which means that you can cast them with its other vehicle version. So it's a robot, of course, free for 4 mana, mono white. Whenever Prowl attacks, exile up to one other target tapped creature or vehicle. For as long as that card remains exiled, its owner may play it, which basically means that you're yailing something, so to say, when this thing attacks. Whenever player plays a card exiled with Prowl, actually they cast the thing that you removed from them, you draw a card and you convert this into a cop car. Whenever another creature or vehicle enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Prowl. If this is the second time this ability has resolved this turn, convert it back to its cop version. So this honestly might be a card Venota could consider. It's a robot, so it's not a human. It will trigger Venota when it attacks. It's the same thing when it's a vehicle. By the way, it's living metal. As long as this is your turn, it's a vehicle, but it's also a creature, so it can actually attack as the cop car version. And it could act as a form of hate bear remover. When it attacks, it removes a hate bear that's preventing you from winning the game of sorts, and you may exile that hate bear temporarily. There's a problem though. Exile up to one other target tapped creature. So if your opponent is never tapping that hate bear, you will never get rid of it with this creature, that is. For example, I've seen Warkite Marauder being used to remove hate bears. Whenever Warkite Marauder attacks, target creature defending player control lose all abilities and become a 0/1, which is great when you wanna like combo off on that turn with a specific combo that hate bear is shutting down. But the fact that Prowl can only remove tapped things makes it unusable in my personal opinion. 4 mana is also quite a lot, which on the other hand isn't really a big deal for this kind of card, because this is a card that's gonna go into a mid-range deck, a deck with a lot of stacks creatures, and they can usually afford this kind of effect. So it feels great for that part. I just wish it could remove things that weren't tapped. Then we have Ratchet Field Medic, also mono white, 3 mana for a 2/4 with lifelink. You can pay 2 mana to make it come into play as a medic truck. An ambulance, sorry. Whenever you gain life, you may convert Ratchet, which it's gonna happen super fast because it has lifelink. When you do, return target artifact card with mana value less than or equal to the amount of life you've gained this turn from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. And whenever one or more non-token artifacts you control are put into your graveyard from the battlefield, convert Ratchet. This ability can only trigger once each turn. So I kinda like it. It has this mid-range play style where it's gaining value by getting artifacts from the graveyard into play. You can discard an artifact, then reanimate that artifact. That's kinda card draw, so to say, but also rebuilding combos as well. For example, there's this card called Time Sieve. Sacrifice 5 artifacts, take an extra turn after this one. So the cool thing here is that Ratchet rebuilds the artifacts you need to sacrifice into Time Sieve to gain extra turns, and then as you're gaining extra turns, you may activate Ratchet's ability more and over to help you win with this Time Sieve trick. So I could see this card seeing some play, but it's honestly tiny bit French. Like, Time Sieve is quite rare to see, and usually when people combo off with Time Sieve, they do that with the commander only. But I wouldn't be surprised if someone actually put this inside their 99, inside their artifact mid-range stacks deck of sorts. Next up is Jetfire Igneous Scientist, either 5 mana or 4 mana. Remove one or more +1/+1 counters from among artifacts you control. Basically, you will put +1/+1 counters on creatures here and there, and then you may use this ability to remove them. To get a target player adds that much colorless mana. This mana can't be spent to cast non-artifact spells, and then you will convert the Jetfire into Air Guardian with blue, free blue, convert it and adapt free, basically put +1/+1 counters on it. Gaining mana is always great, but there's too many hoops. This card is too expensive. For the value that it brings, it's not good. Spoilers, next card is also really bad. 6 mana for Blazewing Cruel Tormentor, or 4 mana. At the beginning of your end step, target opponent lose life equal to the life that player lost this turn. If no life lost this way, convert Blitzwing. So it's basically a aggro card against one player. At the beginning of the by the way, wait a minute. You cast this for 6 and then it instantly converts unless you have creatures that attack. That's annoying. So you have to be able to deal damage to someone the moment you cast this, or it will just come into play and instantly convert. Well, at the beginning of combat on your turn, choose flying or indestructible at random, and it gains that ability. And whenever it deals combat to a player, you will convert it back. So it's only a creature that wanna attack, deal damage and such, and that is very bad for cEDH. We wanna have cards that either perform combo, interaction, card draw, or something of the sort. Sure, we do play the 1 white mana 6/6 flying lifelink that doesn't do anything but being a beater, but still 1 white mana for a 6/6 flying lifelink, that is kind of scary for cEDH. Actually, it's gonna say here kind of scary. It's not like super scary, it's like decently scary. But I actually think Serra Ascendant is a really good card to showcase just how strong an aggro card have to be to see some action inside the competitive EDH format. Then we have Starscream Power Hungry. I really like that name. 4 mana or 3 mana for a 2/3 flying. Whenever you draw a card, if you the Monarch, target opponent lose 2 life. Whenever one or more creatures deals combat damage to you, convert Starscream. Whenever Starscream deals combat damage to a player, if there is no Monarch, that player becomes the Monarch, which is bad. Whenever you become the Monarch, convert Starscream. So you need to deal combat damage to a player, then you start the Monarch thing, and then you will go in a turn cycle and attack the player who is currently the Monarch and regain the Monarch, and you become the card draw boss and sorts. I don't like it. I don't like giving away card draw to opponents, and that's what this actually does. I think this card could fit inside a deck that is becoming the Monarch, like Marchesa, the Mardu Queen something. Honestly, this card is just too weak. Now, sure, it's giving you card draw and it's making opponents lose life whenever you draw a card. That's cute, but it needs to be stronger. It needs a lower mana cost or another cool trick. Slicer Hired Muscle. 5 mana or 3 mana for a 3/4 double strike and haste. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, you may have that player gain control of Slicer until end of turn. If you do, untap Slicer, goad it, and it can't be sacrificed this turn. If you do, convert it into a first strike haste. Whenever Slicer deals combat damage to a player, convert it at end of combat. So it will basically run around the entire battlefield and slice attack from each player's perspective as the vehicle 3/2 with first strike and haste. So I actually kind of like this mechanic. To make aggro work inside the competitive multiplayer format, you need some form of effect like this on the cards. Make a card that is basically able to do multiple attack effects or something of the sort, like Myriad is a great thing too in my opinion. But here, this is attacking at every combat step throughout the turn cycle. So it will basically attack 4 times in one turn. So first and foremost, this card is not good, but I do like the effect. I really like the part where you may have that player gain control of Slicer, preventing a player from basically taking Slicer and attack it into someone that could block it, basically getting rid of Slicer. So I'm guessing Wizards of the Coast are simply just trying to improve on this mechanic. For example, Assault Suit is a great example of a previous card that is doing the exact same thing. Boros Sharpshooter, you either pay 3 mana or 2 mana for a 2/2 first strike and 1 colorless, remove 1 or more +1/+1 counters from this creature. It deals that much damage to target creature, basically an interaction or spot removal of sort, and then you will convert it into a living metal 2/2 vehicle creature. Whenever you cast a spell that targets 1 or more creatures or vehicles you control, you can put that many +1/+1 counters on this thing. I don't like it. There are too many things that you need to do in order to get +1/+1 counters on it with its own effect, to basically have that very weak and slow interaction ability on it. I think the best way to use this card is to have a creature that can put +1% counters on it in a form of way, but the only way it's gonna convert is that you cast spells that target your own creatures, and there are very few spells inside cEDH format that you wanna cast on your own creatures. Like, we're not playing auras and such, we're not playing Voltron and such. Blaster Combat DJ. Is he a basketball player? 5 mana for a free. Other non-token artifacts you control and vehicles you control have modular, which means they enter with the battlefield with an additional +1 counter on them. When they die, you may move that counter from a creature into another artifact creature. Whenever you put one or more +1 counters on Blaster, convert it, and it becomes an artifact, not a vehicle, just an artifact. It becomes a music box. Modular free, so X, tap it, move X +1 counters from Blaster onto another target artifact. That creature gains haste until end of turn. If Blaster has no +1 counters on it, convert it, and only as a sorcery. So the trick here is to put counters on creatures and move counters around to grow your entire board state. Really bad for the competitive format because this is very expensive, and making your creatures huge isn't really that attractive. Or well, it's not unattractive, but as the entire cEDH format basically circles around doing something of this, making your creatures huge seems very inferior. Cyclones The Saboteur. I really like that name. Cyclones. Well, 4 mana Demir or 7 mana Demir for a 2/5 flying. Whenever Cyclones, I can't resist, deals combat damage to a player, it connives. Then if Cyclones' power is 5 or greater, convert it. So that's slow. You probably need to attack 3 times with this, and you have to discard non-land cards to give it +1 counters. Well, you could make it grow in other tricks, but honestly it's really slow to make this convert into Cyclones the Fighter. Whenever Cyclones deals combat damage to a player, convert it. If you do, there is an additional beginning phase after this phase. The beginning phase includes the untap, upkeep and draw step. So this card is like super interesting. It will untap everything you have, create an upkeep effect that's bad sometimes, but sometimes it's good, and then you will draw a card from it, and that's a continuous effect as long as you're able to attack, so to say. However, it's not gonna happen every single turn, because first he deals combat damage as the Cyclones the Saboteur, and then next turn he will deal damage as the fighter version. So each second turn you get an additional beginning phase for a really expensive mana cost and a really slow build up. And that makes it really bad, even though it's a kind of a cool effect. Flame War Brash Veteran Rakdos, 3 mana for a 3/2. Sacrifice another artifact, put up some counter on a Flame War and convert it only as a sorcery. You may also pay 1 colorless mana, discard your hand, put all exiled cards you own with intel counters on them into your hand. And the Flame War motorcycle version, 2/1 Menace Death Touch. Whenever Flame War deals combat damage to a player, exile that many cards from the top of your library face down, put an intel counter on each of them and convert Flame War back to the Archer version. It's honestly really gimmicky for card draw value here. But the card draw amount could get very big here, so sacrifice another artifact, put up some counter on Flame War, means that the motorcycle version is gonna be bigger. It has menace, so it's getting through probably, and as you're making it grow over time, you will make it go through with ease more and more, and you're exiling the amount of cards equal to the damage you dealt. So you discard your hand for 1 mana and you put all the cards that you took with Flame War. I could honestly see this creature being the commander, running a deck with a really low CMC count, a lot of artifacts with like 0 converted mana cost, lots of 3 to cast spells, empty your hand really fast, sacrifice artifact, attack with this thing, rebuild your hand, dump your hand, rebuild your hand, and just go off with that kind of style. Like, this is card draw. It's a little bit gimmicky, but it is card draw, and it has the potential of being really a high amount of card draw as well. It's really hard to actually say if this is gonna be good or be functional, because I think you have to see it in action, like playtesting will showcase if this card actually works, but honestly I could see it work. I'm a tiny bit skeptic, but there is something there. Goldbug, humanity's ally! 3 mana blue and white for a 3/3 with a really nice ability. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to attacking creatures you control. And whenever you cast your second spell each turn, convert Goldbug into a really old cute car. Human spells you control can't be countered. Huh. Whenever Goldbug and at least one human attack, draw a card and convert Goldbug. It's honestly not that bad. It's a little bit, it has some really strange effects, like prevent all combat damage that will be dealt to attacking humans you control. Human spells can't be countered. Like, both of those stuff are good for a human stacks orientated deck. Like a weird Tymna stacks deck could actually play this, making it really safe for Tymna to attack, making it impossible for people to counterspell Tymna, which never happens, but there are other humans that you kinda wanna protect sometimes, and it has card draw in it as well. It is very far from being busted, but it's quite okay. I could see someone playing this in the right kind of a deck. Oh, we're gonna have some power to the name in this one. Here we have Megatron Tyrant for a 6 mana Mardu or 4 mana 7/5. Your opponents can't cast spells during combat. At the beginning of post-combat main phase, you may convert, here it comes, Megatron. If you do, add that much colorless mana for each life your opponents have lost this turn. And Living Metal, it's a very big tank. Whenever Megatron attacks, you may sacrifice another artifact. When you do, Megatron deals damage equal to the sacrificed artifact's mana value to target creature. So that's kind of like interaction. If excess damage would be dealt to that creature this way, instead that damage is dealt to that creature's controller and you convert Megatron. Even though his name implies awesomeness, he's not good. He's just too expensive, too casual. Like, gaining colorless mana, that's good, but for the amount of mana you pay to gain that mana, you don't need to gain that mana. Optimus Prime Hero, really expensive 6 mana Jeskai for an 4/8. At the beginning of each end step, bolster 1. When Optimus dies, return it to the battlefield converted under its owner's control as a 6/8 trample living metal vehicle. Whenever you attack, bolster 2. The chosen creature gains trample and at the end of turn. When that creature deals combat damage to a player this turn, convert Optimus Prime. It's very bad. It's very expensive to boost your creatures with more power and toughness. That's not good. Soundwave, Sonic Spy. Esper colors 4 mana for a 5/4. Whenever one or more creatures tokens you control deal combat damage to a player, exile target instant or sorcery card with mana value equal to the damage dealt from their graveyard. Copy it. You may cast a copy without paying its mana cost. If you do, convert Soundwave into a music box again. Whenever you cast a spell with an odd mana value, convert Soundwave. If you do, create a 3/3 black robot artifact creature token with menace and death touch. Whenever you cast a spell with an even mana value, convert it, this thing again, and you create a 2/2 blue artifact creature token. This is honestly too expensive. Like, there's something there. You may cast an instant sorcery with mana value equal to damage dealt from their graveyard, like you're stealing spells. Like, it's a mnemonic betrayal in the command zone, like a tiny version of it. Whenever one or more creature tokens you control deal combat damage, you have to do it with tokens. You can't do it with this thing. You can produce tokens with other, you can produce tokens with this superior Capitan, so to say, the music box version, but no. Last card to look at is Ultra Magnus Tactician, which is Naya colors 7 mana, super expensive 7/7 with ward 2. When Ultra Magnus attacks, you may put an artifact creature card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. If you do, convert it at end of combat. Formidable. Whenever Ultra Magnus attacks, attacking creatures you control gain indestructible until on turn if those creatures have a total power of 8 or greater, convert it. So tricking creatures into play have always been kinda good in the format. However, for this amount of mana, you might as well just cast the creature instead. So those were all the cards from the Transformers set. I don't think anyone was surprised. That were mostly kinda bad, but I think Ratchet Field Medic has a form of potential. There were some other cool cards that could do something cool as well, but I think this is the one that stands out the most in my personal opinion. Thank you so much for watching the video. Hope you found it entertaining, and I'll see you next time, guys. Take care.